can start.
Right, well, I'm Patsy Russell, and I was married to Cyril Russell for many, many years. I married him in 1950, but we first met when I was still at school, and he had just come back from Arizona. In fact, I think he was wearing one of his shirts that they have issued to them. And I was out with a friend of his, and for some reason, he...
I'm so sorry. Right, okay, we'll plug it back in. I'm
Sorry, Vince. Do you want me to start again?
Yeah, if we can, that would be good.
What can I do?
Let it ring. Will it matter if it rings?
If it rings, then
We'll just stop it. We'll
You
just
just
stop.
answer immediately and say, "You're my secretary and I cannot be disturbed." Okay.
We'll start again then from the beginning.
We'll begin at the beginning.
Yes, okay.
I'm Patsy Russell, and I was married to Cyril Russell, who was a cadet at Falcon Field, and we met when I was 16. He had just come back from the States then, and it was a sudden meeting because I was walking with a friend of his who was my boyfriend at the time, and Cy, as we call him, was cycling past. He'd just been playing the organ at Teeston Church, which was a few miles away, and he had returned, as I say, from the States, and was he's a musician. He was a musician, and he played the organ in church. He also gave piano lessons, and for some reason he was cycling past, and then he turned round and came back and said, "Hi, sugar," which was what you do when you've been in America. And I thought that was very exciting to be called sugar by this lovely blonde young man. And from there it went on, and he told me all about his training, how fantastic it had been, how he left England on a dreadfully cold, grey February day and sailed to Canada on the Queen Mary, and they were taken to, I don't know where the ship disembarked in Canada, but they were then put on a train to New York, and he was so thrilled because on the train seats were apples, bananas, fruit, which we hadn't seen in England because it was wartime, and chicken sandwiches, lovely things. Everything must have been absolutely stunning for him to leave wartime Britain, which was blackouts, which was dire, which was sad, and arrive in this gorgeous, gorgeous country. So he went, I think they went to New York, and then how they got to Mesa, I don't know. I should have asked all these questions, but alas, now I can't. And he was sent to Falcon Field, which was beautiful, lovely, the land of honey. Everybody was nice to him. They wore British uniforms, and people would stop them in the streets and say, would they go for meals? And I was just talking about his church visits, which were to play the organ somewhere exactly where I don't know, but it can't have been far away from Falcon Field. And so he spent the next of his months there learning to fly an aeroplane. At his interview for aircrew, he was asked why he wanted to join the Air Force, and he said, because I want to fight in the air and kill Germans, which is what he regretted saying for a lot of times afterwards. But he was, like most young men, he was very, very keen to get into the war. So they learned to fly. One of his his instructors was Mr. Pancras. I don't know if that would ring any bells. He thought very highly of him. Pull your stick back, Russell, he used to say. So I was very airsick, I believe, at first, but gradually got into it. He swam a lot in the lake, which was glorious. The weather was fantastic, chilly at night, but really, really amazing during the days. This was in our February. I don't know what the temperatures would have been then. So they were training on Harvards. He loved it. He loved it. He didn't like night flying. He found that not a happy experience, but he loved flying during the day, the sunshine. So a very happy period of his life. I believe he was ill at one point and had what they called valley fever. I don't really know if we have an equivalent. Is it like flu or something? But his life was amazing there. And suddenly it all ended when Hiroshima occurred, because they were training for the Japanese front. And so his experience was suddenly ended. I think he enjoyed the life enormously. We were very different people in England, I think. We were pretty war-bound. I think we were pretty weary. And to have this exotic, wonderful country with all these very outgoing people must have been quite different. I'm trying to think of things that they did. He was once taken horse riding, and he'd never been riding before without a saddle, and they rode all day into the desert, and he couldn't walk afterwards. There wasn't, I don't think, a huge social life, except they did have a jazz band. He played the piano in the jazz band, and they had concerts and things like that. He did have friends. I think all of them have died now. He didn't keep up friendships. I think the war finished up because people of his age then went to be trained into another profession, and more or less that was it. The jazz band he loved. They played a lot The Sunny Side of the Street. That was his signature tune. Loved playing the piano with pints of beer on top of that. I believe one night they stole a chicken from the officers' mess canteen and cooked it, which is one of the memories that he had. It was generally a most amazing time of his life. And always I wanted to go and see where he'd been. But for some reason, I think it was maybe he didn't want to spoil this memory because it was so special. And he'd say, no, no, not again, not again. So I can't tell you a great deal more, except that we were one the moment we met up. He, as I say, called me Sugar. My mother was a bit outraged because I was quite young, but it was eventually accepted that one day we would get married and live happily ever after. And we mostly did. We mostly did. And I think he would be so excited if he knew that this was happening.
Where did he play, when he played the jazz band,
Yeah.
where did he play that?
In wherever did they have a mess at Falcon Field?
I don't know if they did or not.
I know there was a piano, Anne. I honestly don't know, and of course there's nobody left that we can ask now.
Right.
The organ again, I don't know which church it was.
That one we can probably find out.
Can you
in
find
church,
that
I
out?
would imagine.
Yes.
I would think that's something that's probably doable, is to find the church.
Yes.
But I don't know.
And the lake where they swam.
Actually, I don't know that it was a lake. I think it was a swimming pool. There was a swimming pool there. You think it was a lake?
Yes, he said. He
So
definitely
what was the
said it
lake
was a
then,
lake, a very large lake, and quite icy cold and beautiful.
Is it Lake Pleasant out there?
Lake Pleasant's that's on the
Other side?
the west side, yeah. On the east, there's I can't remember the name. I've been to it before. I think I know what you're talking about. It's out in Mesa, so.
I know on one occasion they had a short leave, and several of them went to the Hollywood Bowl and New York and did all those things that you do. But as I say, I was a schoolgirl.
Did he mention any of the stars he saw?
In Hollywood, no, he didn't.
Only because different people have mentioned people they saw in Hollywood, or that they saw off of a train, or there's been different stars that have been mentioned throughout. So I was just curious if he ever mentioned
No,
any
he
stars
didn't.
to you.
No, he didn't. I think he would have been more interested in people that played music. He was very much a musician. And so they went to a concert at the Hollywood Bowl, which was very impressive. I don't... He was a young man that was very obsessed with music. And not movie stars, wouldn't have been his scene, didn't like dancing.
Did he like flying?
He loved flying. He loved it. And so every time we went anywhere on a flight, afterwards on holiday, he would, it took him all back, and flaps up, pull back, that whatever you do. He went through all the, he loved flying. He loved flying. I think if things had been different, he probably would have loved to do it. Who knows? But circumstances make everything different, don't they?
Did he ever fly again after that?
No, he didn't. He didn't. You see, when the bomb dropped, and you probably know all this, so stop me, they were sent home almost rapidly, and they were doing bomb repairs in London. They didn't stay in the States for long, although Mandy tells me there are still things in his logbook for 1945 I think for him, the experience was dreamlike, but it was ended with the return to England. It was something that happened, but only once in a lifetime.
And not to be repeated, and he didn't want to ruin the memory.
Yes. I don't know. I think some people wouldn't understand that, but he did. He loved it. He was so pro-American. And I don't know what he'd say now, but he always defended America to the hilt. And of course, there were all our heroes, Winston Churchill, Roosevelt, because I think this training was part of the lease lend, wasn't it? That Roosevelt and Churchill, do you know?
I don't know.
They made a pact together during the war about lease lend, and Roosevelt promised that he would accept our cadets or our flyers into the States and train them there, because it was very necessary to do something to get them out of England. Things were pretty nasty. And so, no, it was an experience, but I think that was the end of it.
Okay, so Vince, what questions do you have?
I was just going to ask, did Cy ever talk about how he was welcomed in Arizona?
Always, always, always. I think I said, Vince, they'd be walking along the street in Air Force uniform, and they'd be stopping. People would say, thank you for what you're doing, come and visit us, come for a meal. He said everybody was so welcoming. You Brit boys, you're wonderful. And, you know, this was very overwhelming, actually, because we at that time, we were very reserved, quiet people. And to have everybody saying, hello, come and see us, come and let me show you. And as I say, I think he had a friendship with somebody called Anne. She wouldn't be alive now, I don't suppose, the daughter of the minister. He always said this chap that's written in the book was the Archbishop of, can't be, can it, of Phoenix or Mesa? I don't know. I don't know
if they have archbishops there, do they?
I don't know. He was, or a bishop, or there's no clue. There is one thing I remember, that when, I think it was in 1942, but I'm not positive again, he was able to make a transatlantic call, one of the first, to his mother in Maidstone. And she was filmed in the local paper. I've tried, we did have a cutting of that, which I cannot find, and I've tried to, I've been in touch with the Kent Messenger and tried to get them to tell us about that day, show us any newspaper cuttings, Cyril Russell, talking to his mother Edith in Maidstone, which was very exciting. We all accept transatlantic calls now, don't we? They're just what you do, but for him, I was astounding. I think you probably can't see it because you're much younger. See it through those eyes of we oldies.
A huge accomplishment.
Huge
Accomplishment.
Yes.
Oh, that was very exciting. Because he was there other people in his, that he said did the same thing, or
No.
was he the only one?
No, he was the only one, which And I think my mother-in-law hadn't got a phone, so she was at the neighbour's house.
Oh, house, uh-huh.
Yeah, so she had to trot round there and
Oh, but no, very exciting.
receive the call.
That might have been too, if that was like the first one, then that was probably just as it was all finishing there, and
Could
things
have
were
been.
just all changing.
It could have been. I'm sorry, my recollections are not
Oh no,
as
your
good.
recollections are perfect, Patsy. They're wonderful.
Because there were people that he was friends with that were particularly playing with him, but they've gone, they've died, you know.
Were they all British soldiers?
They were all Brits, yes, but one of them, and I can look in the book and find his name at some point, married a girl in Arizona and went out there to live.
Oh, and ended up staying there.
Mm.
Oh.
Not until quite recently, I think when I say that, I mean about 10 years ago, because he met up with her, and they married quite suddenly and quite an elderly phase in life. And we talked to him one night, and he said, "Oh, Russ," I think they used to call him Russ in the Air Force. You should come over here, and we'll have a party. And we never went to America, so that's why I was going in November.
So you were planning on going to the reunion? Oh.
Definitely, and if I were able to get travel insurance, which was a bit of a complication. But yes, very most definitely. And my friends were coming with me to help a bit, because I've got one or two little problems.
Well, now, okay, so if you were there, Patsy, what would you say?
If I were there,
Yes.
I'd say first of all, I want to see Falcon Field. I want to see the Harvards. I want to see the Sturmans. I want to hear all the things that he talked about. I want to see the amazing terrain. I want to go and taste what eggs sunny side up are, that they used to rave about. What would I say? I would say, oh, I'm sure you'll walk through the door somewhere. I'm sure I shall see him somewhere. What would you say? I don't know. This is an amazing thing to happen, but it's 80 years on, isn't it?
Oh, that's perfect. That's perfect.
Last question. Did he ever mention the orange groves?
Now, the orange groves of California or of Arizona?
Right, so surrounding Falcon Field, there's just tons
No,
and tons
he
of orange.
didn't.
No, okay.
He didn't. But I tell you, that would have been very interesting, Vince, because one of his favourite composers is Frederick Delius, who spent a lot of his life, his youth. He's a German actor, born in Germany, but he spent a lot of his youth with his uncle in California, wrote a lot of music while he was in the orange groves.
It's funny because some people have mentioned it and some people have not mentioned it at
Really,
all.
really.
And we know that you can't, and we know what they smell like. So
Oh,
yes, so that's
Oh,
why.
I know what he said was divine were things like watermelons that you ate a lot there. He didn't like oranges particularly, so perhaps that wasn't. But it was the land. Can you understand? To him, it was the land of everything. as a young man from not a wealthy family, who was suddenly transported into a different world, a world of light and sun, and the world where, you know, the impossible is always possible. It all can happen, or it all could.
How old was he when he got back?
He was 23.
Oh.
He was 23, wearing, as I said, one of his shirts, and I was 16. And he used to love, as I think I've said, to call me Sugar because it sounded American. And so he sent me, this is a funny one, but quite difficult to understand, because I was quite young, so he didn't call to my house immediately. He sent me a camembert cheese box. Now, where he got that in the end of the war, I don't know. And it said, with music notes written on, Dear Sugar, 00 as in foot, because that's how we would write sugar. And no, laugh. Dear Sugar, 00 as in foot, may I see you again? And I thought that was all very grown up.
Okay, I don't get it. Do you get it?
You spell
Sugar.
sugar with 2 O's, yeah?
2 O's, yeah. Dear Sugar,
Oh,
00
I
as in
see.
foot. He had a quirky sense
Oh,
of,
got it. Oh.
Dear Sugar, 00 as in foot, may I see you again, or something like that. Yeah.
And how old was he when he passed, Patsy?
He was 89.
Oh, so he was a good child.
He'd been ill for a long time, but he always used to say, when people came, I'm old but happy. And he was a happy person, always. It was one of those cheery things, wasn't it, Mandy? Or
And was
perhaps
he a musician all of his life?
he went to train at Trinity College of Music in London when he left the Air Force, because before that he'd had a job, but nothing in particular. There hadn't been any education because he left school quite young. So he trained and got lots of letters and things like that. And then he was a teacher in school until his last job was at Maidstone Grammar School. He was a working musician. He wasn't an airy-fairy musician. He was a working musician, you know, and always very modest. There was no drama about Cy. He just got on with it. Perhaps because of his pilot training.
Oh, that's perfect. See, it's perfect. So is there anything else you can think of?
I don't really think there is. It was a chapter in his life
That he enjoyed?
that he adored. He adored it. Yeah, I think possibly he would have liked to have gone to the States to work, but because of mothers and fathers who weren't well, we stayed until they'd all passed away, and then we went to live in Spain, as I say, for a little while, looking for that sunshine. The Grand Canyon, of course, he was monumental, wasn't it? That was somewhere that he remembered very, very clearly. he remembered his bottom too when he'd been riding without a saddle. Yeah. He remembered all the lovely fruits and happy people. I guess they're not so happy now.
I don't know. Do you think they're happy with?
I-
I think so. Some of them.
They've had quite a lot of, haven't they,
Yeah.
of going on, as we'd say. Sorry, is that not, I just haven't,
No, that was
I
huge.
haven't- I haven't got more
No,
things.
that was huge, Patsy. That
I-
was absolutely wonderful.
I constantly regret, with lots of other people, with uncles and father and people like that, that I didn't say what happened.
I know.
then-
We always do that, though.
It's too late,
Yes,
isn't it?
Exactly. Yes, exactly. We always do that.
Yeah.
So have you done it, though, Patsy?
Have I done what?
Have you done your life? Like you're saying, Si should have done his and told you. Have you done yours?
No.
Then maybe that's something you should think about.
It's quite ordinary. It's quite ordinary. My mother-in-law used to say, if he hadn't met her, he would have been the organist at Westminster Abbey. And my mother used to say, and if she hadn't met him,
Yeah.
they didn't get on. My mother and my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law was Victorian, bless her, very Victorian. But I know you were Brit at birth, or were you
Yes,
born there?
yes.
Oh,
I went to America when I was 3 weeks old.
oh. Your mother took you? Oh, yeah.
My parents took me, yes. We actually went over on the Mauritania.
Oh no, did you really?
And they had to rescue a boat in the middle because they had to rescue some ship that was drowning.
Oh my God.
So, yeah.
Was this during the war?
No.
Just after?
Yes, after the war.
Yes, because you're
Yes,
too young to be. Yeah.
But so Vince, any questions we can think of?
No,
I think we're pretty
yeah,
good. I
you
think
got quite
that's
a bit.
very good,
Yeah,
Patsy.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. You sound very sweet. You're
No, it's perfect. No, the things you said are perfect. That's wonderful. It's exactly what we wanted. So,
Would
no,
you
it's
have
very
some
good.
coffee now? Or some tea? You probably drink tea.
I do drink tea.
What do you drink,
What time is
Vince?
it?
I'm okay. 3, almost 4, right? Yeah.
Have you, can you stop for a little, or have you got to?
Do you want to come for tea, Vince?
I'm okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll overheat. Just because I'm not used to it. But
Okay.
Would you like